My name is Ghostboy259 and I played Omno. Omno is a game made by Studio Indie Fox, kickstarted back in November of 2018 and was released on Steam July 21st, 2021. It was mostly a solo dev effort, and the game is primarily about exploration as well as some puzzling, but it also manages to tell two very different stories, one which I kinda tuned out, and another that's a lot more subtle but ended up being my favorite part of the entire game. The game itself is nearly $25 Canadian, which I don't think I can justify for a very easy 5-hour game unless it really blows me out of the water and does something truly original. But Omno also goes on sale for less than $2.50 Canadian, and for that price it's an absolute steal and absolutely worth your money. If you want to watch the VOD of my playthrough, you can go to youtube.com/realityescapeplays. If you want to watch me play these games live and see yourself in the chat, you can go to twitch.tv/ghostboy259. If you want to help support this channel on Patreon or join our Discord to recommend me games, all the links are at realityescape.ca. And for April and May, I'm going to be uploading videos twice a week on this channel, so feel free to subscribe for a lot more of this. Omno is a game mostly about exploration of this old, seemingly abandoned world where you play as, presumably, Omno? I don't know. There's no direct dialogue to really confirm. You are revisiting the steps of an old forgotten pilgrimage in order to find the new world. It seems everyone else has already found their way a long time ago, and so with the help of your staff, you collect light and wisdom spheres to advance past the vast landscapes and retrace their steps. There are creatures who walk this earth seemingly not invited to this new world, and it's never explained why you are the only one left, or maybe you've left a group and you just have to go one at a time, but either way, I quite like it. You don't really need to know why everything is happening, you just know that this is how things are and that it's very meaningful for you as the character. If you played for just the first hour or two, I would totally understand if you felt the game's story wasn't significant or didn't really come into play, because sometimes puzzle games just have a little extra story in the background for flavor and it's mostly about the mechanics, but ultimately I really enjoyed how this one played out. I will, however, cover it in the spoiler section at the end of this video, in case you perhaps wanted to give this game a go yourself after I break down the mechanics. In Omno, you start off with a very basic skill set, but as you continue to play, more and more abilities are added to your disposal, and it really does a good job at just slowly ramping things up. You get really familiar with the new mechanic before moving on to the next set of levels, and even in the very last sections of the game, you're still getting new things. At first you start off with just the ability to jump and to siphon light out of animals, which you'll need to move on, as well as these little activator things. Sometimes puzzles won't be lit up, not exactly rocket science. As the game progresses, you'll gain the ability to dash, ride on your staff like a surfboard, teleport, and glide. The dashing feels really aggressive for such a calm environment, but it works and pretty much adds the only platforming aspect to this game. The surfing feels really great when you're going downhill or something, but it requires you to be going down a slope and have momentum, like a real thing, which means you can't just ride flat ground, and I get it, but with no run option in the game and dash having a slight cooldown to it, I would have liked it if it was more like a scooter where you can just go no matter what, just to make traveling smoother, but I get it. Teleporting was a really unexpected mechanic. You can't just teleport wherever, you have to go to these teleporters, and oftentimes part of puzzles will be you having to unhide these teleporters for you to use, or they'll be on a timer. But in a game that's so heavily based in exploration, where in order to get the things you need, you have to walk around and explore, teleporting means you will often be skipping through a lot of the map, and the maps are really large, so it means you'll have to backtrack a few times if you want to 100% everything, which I absolutely recommend you do. It only takes about 5 hours to 100% everything. I imagine if you didn't, it would take maybe 2. The gliding is okay. It's a little inconsistent because they introduce these wind blasts to make you fly up, and sometimes they don't send you high enough or they send you forward, and it's not the most ideal glide, but in a game with no real death or consequences and just checkpoints, it's easy enough to forgive, and it's not the end of the world when things go wrong. The maps all look really nice. In total, I think there's 11 stages, and it's spread across 5 different map types or environment types. It definitely feels like the maps were created and then it was like, okay, let's put a book over here and let's put a puzzle over here. So while a good chunk of these large open areas are empty, you can always see something you can do from far away, so you know where to head right after. And all the puzzles are far away enough from each other that you don't get one puzzle confused with another. On every map, you need at least 3 wisdom spheres to move forward, but usually there are 5 or 6 available. One will always be got by getting these light points, which you get by meeting and interacting with these creatures. Creatures are another thing you'll have to quote-unquote collect or meet if you want to 100% the game, but there's a good chance you'll do that completely by accident. And lastly, there are these glyphs everywhere, these little books that feed the game's story to you about the staff holders and how they guided people to the new world on their pilgrimage. Each map probably has 3 to 4 glyphs and 3 to 4 animals, and there's a cool little 3D map that your character can pull up, but it only shows you the location of the spheres. So generally the books are what I end up going to have to backtrack to find. But like I said, it's definitely worth 100%ing if you're going to play this game. I genuinely think the game would be way too short if you just went to the bare minimum. You're going to miss out on like everything. In order to get all these collectibles, you'll be doing a mix of puzzles and platforming. The platforming is nothing crazy until maybe you get the glide mechanic. Everything is probably done on the first try. Maybe you mess up on the occasional one once or twice, probably from dashing. The puzzles range from just figuring out how to get somewhere. Maybe it's a really basic, move this block so you can jump from here to here, or rotate these blocks to get these designs. The teleportation ability brings more timed puzzles for sure than before it's introduced, but the real tricky puzzle is the one at the very end of every level, which you can't do until you've collected at least 3 wisdom spheres. After that, you'll have to complete the puzzle to leave, and these can actually be quite tricky and really destroy your brain because there's such a difficulty leap from the rest of the puzzles to these. It doesn't really help the fact that there's no dialogue at all to help you, or a tutorial or instructions to figure out the puzzles. Everything is taught to the player by having you do it before, which is honestly quite brilliant. It's like you learn 5 parts of one thing and then it all comes together at the end, but it hurts a little bit when the puzzles get a bit out of their scope and you find something you've never seen before. For example, earlier on in the game in the snowy area, there's one puzzle that really complicated things because you have to hit the lights from the perspective of the obelisks, but you don't know if it's looking at it or from it, and it even takes a while to figure that out because you don't necessarily see the lights or tune into that's what's happening. And it's just such a ramp up from everything else you've done to that point that you really aren't expecting it, and it's quite jarring. Someone who came into my chat actually told me they quit the game at this point because they couldn't figure it out. The only other ones I really got stuck on are, there's one where I didn't explore enough and there was a portal or launch pad nearby and I just hadn't seen it. I did consult a walkthrough a few times, but it was mostly just for the glyph locations because, you know, I'm streaming. I don't want to bore people by searching around for an hour. Even then though, if you're pretty thorough, I don't even think you'll need a walkthrough. I don't mind harder puzzles in games by any means, I just feel like maybe they don't necessarily fit the rest of the game. They're just so much harder. Although outside that ice perspective one, I think maybe 99% of people won't have issues with most of them. The ice level one is actually a really amazing, incredible puzzle in isolation, and the solution feels so crazy once you figure it out. I just don't think it fits this particular game. In between levels, you'll just have a little surf around and go fast section. These are pretty fun, and I can't imagine how long all these environments would have taken to make just for the player to zoom by in 3 seconds. The music also chimes in at really good times and creates a really great atmosphere. Like, there's certain music that only chimes in when you hop on your staff to surf, and then once you hop off, it calms down again. But I genuinely cannot believe in this day of modern gaming, you cannot turn down the game volume in the game. I don't just mean the music, I don't just mean the sound effects. You cannot turn down any volume in the game. I have no idea why this isn't an option. I'm not even saying it needs to have different sliders for different aspects, but the fact that I can't even alter the sound level at all in any way from the menu is mind-boggling. And unfortunately, it actually is a problem because some parts of the game are so much louder than others, and it was just really annoying to deal with, both from a playing and streaming perspective. It's like when you're watching a movie and the dialogue gets really quiet, so you turn up the volume, and suddenly there's explosions and they're way too loud proportionally to the rest. At the end of every level, you get to ride or travel with this cool semi-mythical beast thing. The visuals look great, you're riding along, the animal design clearly has a lot of care put into it, but every single time my main thought was, man, I wish I could just turn down the volume a little bit. So I do want to get into the story just very briefly, so if you're interested in playing this game, you should leave and go do that now. Otherwise, I don't think the rest of this video will terribly ruin your playthrough. It's just an interesting observation I made, but the observation comes at the very last part of the game, so I just want to talk about it very briefly, and I'll explain it if you don't want to play the game and you just want to hear this thing. I'll explain the context. So here is the spoiler warning now. As you go through these games, you find the glyphs that tell you the story about being one of the chosen with the staff and leading people to the new world beyond, and it talks a lot about being prepared to leave the old world behind. And while playing through, pretty much from the very first glyph, I even said, this is basically just a game about Christianity. The idea that life is like this pilgrimage and we're being tested for the one true new world or whatever. You know, very ending of Narnia, if you know what I mean. Like the books, not the movie. I think it would be very easy to make those comparisons. I mean, calling the game a pilgrimage already is pretty on the nose, but then the ending completely threw this entire theory upside down. Throughout the game, you have what I call your floating squirrel friend. I don't actually know what it's called. And at first, it's very subtle. It's in the opening sequence when you start a new world, and then it'll fly away. It's quirky, but you don't think much of it. You try to collect it like you do with the other animals, but you can't. You realize you already have 100% without it, so you just move on. And then it's there in the next one. Just a quick little, oh, okay, it's kind of following me. This little gag, this thing's going to be there at the beginning of every level. You can't really interact, but suddenly every time you get stuck, there it is. It's already waiting for you, and then it flies off when you show up. In later levels, you start to notice it's flying in the direction of where you need to go, and then soon you can interact with it. It's so subtle, but it's brilliantly done. You don't even realize this one special creature is following you everywhere until about halfway through the game, and at one point they even fake its death Goofy from Kingdom Hearts 2 style, and it's kind of shocking, and it never really helps you a tremendous amount. There's no puzzle where it does anything, there's no mechanic attached to it. If it wasn't there, the game would be exactly the same on a technical level. For the last few stages, this thing does not leave your side. It travels with you as much as it can. And near the end, I made a joke to my chat about the squirrel friend not coming with us because despite what cartoon movies have you think, all dogs don't go to heaven. It seems the developer agreed with me because when the main character invites the floating squirrel to go with him, it doesn't go. Whether it's because it will miss the other animal friends or it can't physically go into the new world, our character decides it has to go alone. But then there's a fake out. At the last second, he realizes he can't leave his newfound friend behind and he opts to stay in this post-apocalyptic empty world forever. And the two share a really lovely embrace, and it's such a cool moment. It genuinely warmed my heart. But surely that can't mean this is a metaphor for heaven then, because then he just rejected the light and the new world to stay with his friends? So does that imply that the character's going to hell, or that this world is hell? He's giving up the purpose of his pilgrimage for earthly pleasures? It just completely breaks what I thought was a very obvious and heavy metaphor of Christianity into a really sweet and sentimental story about realizing that what you're looking for can be found during the journey and not the destination. But it completely threw me for a loop because I was so convinced from the very first sentence I was playing a Christian allegory game, and now I'm convinced it's some sort of anti-Christian allegory game. I'm just not sure what this was all leading to. The squirrel looks at him and the light beams around him. I jokingly said they should start playing Ooh, Heaven is a Place on Earth, but I was genuinely so surprised when he actually stayed, and I was surprised in the best way. This was my favorite part of the game, the very end. The way they build up your relationship with this creature is so brilliant, and it's so subtle, but then you start to get attached to him because it's the only thing that follows you from level to level. If you watch the video I made on far loan sales, it's very much this thing about how interactive experiences can make you develop relationships and attachments with things that you can't even really communicate with, in some cases not even live objects. I just craved the familiar without even realizing, and maybe it's also me just realizing this flying squirrel is clearly a plot device after a while, but the game doesn't force it down your throat with a bunch of cutscenes. It's like, oh, there's this thing. Oh, there it is again. And sooner or later, you will get stuck at one part in the game, and you'll be happy to see it. You'll be like, hey, there's my squirrel friend. Omno is a really fun, sweet, cute, simple exploration game with a good balance of very easy platforming and very easy puzzles. It's, for the most part, very forgiving, with only one or two real stumpers that could justifiably take you out of it. But if you don't mind Googling a walkthrough once or twice if you get stuck, or you're really experienced with puzzle games, it's definitely worth 100%ing. And I would actually argue it's worth 100%ing more than just playing it and finishing it. While I can't recommend it at its base price, when it's on sale, it's too much of a steal not to get. It's light, it's relaxing, adventurous, and the visuals are great to look at. The style is clean and consistent, and the animal designs are really cool to look at, and you can tell a lot of thought and care went into their design. Maybe they got a little carried away with some of the animal names, though. They're a little, sometimes we need to wrap in our creativity a little bit. But hey, I can't judge names. After all, my name is Ghostboy259, and I played Omno. Next time, I'll play something else. Thanks for watching.